Good afternoon, everybody. Call to order the Ford County Commission meeting for July 17th, 2023. Our meeting number will be 2023-28. To start us off today, we have Jerry Nolte with the First United Methodist Church to lead us in prayer, and then we'll have a pledge of allegiance. Jerry?
Thank you. Commission and friends, honored guests, on behalf of the Dodge City Ministerial Alliance and Fellowship, I thank you for the opportunity to be here. Friends, let's pray. Oh Lord, we seek your blessing on the tasks that are before the Commission today. Bless their efforts with clear insight, guide their deliberations with wisdom, and in all of their work as a Commission with clarity and accuracy, so that their decisions may be impartial. As this month comes to a close and a new month will soon begin, we recognize that we are called upon to make the best decisions possible for our county. Equip us, O Lord, with the skills of discernment and judgment as we live into the responsibilities bestowed upon us as we seek to govern our county with regard to what is best for our fellow citizens of Ford County. Above all else, may we keep secure in ourselves what we know to be true, just, and fair for all those concerned, and that our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly in all matters before us, today and all days. It is in your holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Jerry. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start with our consent agenda. We have approval for the minutes of meeting 2023-26. We have additions and abatements, $532.78 to the positive. Shirley, you think we even need you to come up?
Okay, good.
Community Development Block Grant semi-annual report and a school health nursing services contract. Pat, Jackie, are you doing the CDBG?
I can. Do you want to report on it?
Yeah, I guess let you know where we're at.
Okay. The balance brought forward from the last report was $253,661.36. Payments applied this period, $53,102.47. We didn't have any other income. Loans made, we didn't make any loans. We did have some administrative fees to Mr. Curbs. We have a delinquent loan that he's been working to help get caught up. So the administrative fees were $331.56. So the total we have available now to lend is $306,432.27. And we have two active loans remaining. Most of our emergency loans made during the COVID and aftermath have paid off. They're all paid.
And Pat, are we receiving any applications for financing or anything?
We're not. They've made it so difficult. They put a $100,000 cap on a loan, and if someone's received a loan in the past, even if they paid it off, they're not eligible, and they can't be in the incorporated cities if they have programs, which is the city of Dodge and the city of Stewartville. So they've made it a bit challenging for people, but they keep looking. You know, Great Plains is still promoting it, and Joanne Knight is aware, so they're always on the lookout, but it's just real tough.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I will make a motion that we approve the
second it.
Motion second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have approval of claims for payment in the amount of $1,476,657.32.
We have bond payments.
Okay. Make a motion that we approve the claim for payment as presented.
I second it.
Motion second, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, open public comment is next on the agenda. We'll limit that to 5 minutes per individual and 15 minutes per topic, with final action to be deferred to the next county commission meeting unless an emergency situation is deemed to exist. Do we have anybody for open public comment today? No takers? Not, we will move on. We have Ford County zoning regulations under unfinished business. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, how are you? I know we've been through this before. This is new, and I'm actually requesting that the Board of Commissioners send this back to zoning. We have had two things come up that the public has not had a chance to comment on, and that is National Weather Service is requesting some regulations update as to a no-build zone and so forth. We've never dealt with that in the zoning board. And also, the City of Dodge City Airport Manager is requesting, instead of 2 miles that I wanted, he wants 3 miles. We never discussed further, we just did the 2 miles and less. So those are the two subjects that I would like to bring back before the zoning board and get this all completed together at one time.
Okay. And is this where we're gonna have the National Weather Service? Under this agenda item also? Okay. Melissa, can we have you relinquish the podium there?
Yes.
And we'll ask the National Weather Service to come and give us a short presentation.
Careful. We're not very good enough for
All right, well, I appreciate the opportunity.
First, I'm gonna have you introduce yourself there for the.
Sure. My name's Aaron Johnson. I'm from the National Weather Service in Dodge City. My title is a Science and Operations Officer. Yes, I get some jokes about Spock, Science Officer. With me today is Rick Leopold. He's back there. He's the Electronic System Administrator, so he does a lot of the work on the radar. And, you know, our goal today is just to give you a little bit of an explanation for what we do in terms of wind turbine clutter, and then the process or mechanism that exists already within the Weather Service and some of the limitations. So, somewhat informal, but this may presentation 10, 12 minutes at most, and then questions at the end. So, hopefully that's okay for
Take it
start.
away.
All right. First I say that, now it's not progressing. Well, this is exciting. Why is it technology never works when you want it? It is locked up. Let me try unhooking this. Where's that's the problem? Nope. Ah, that's great. when you wanna use the technology, it locks up on you.
Aaron, is this okay if you just want to move on with verbal presentations?
Well, a lot of there's some, here we go. I think maybe we're trying to move in here. Yeah, okay. So, let's back up here. Okay, so what I was gonna show to start off with, these are the current wind turbine locations for each of the wind farms in or near Ford County. We're not putting in proposed, really legally, we can't talk about those until they're approved. So, you know, what's the issue here? Well, our radar is co-located at the Dodge City Regional Airport, the Doppler radar. Now, realistically, what does that mean in terms of the impacts to our radar? So I picked a nice clear day, really nothing out there, nothing going on, so that you can kind of put together where, for those that can see it, you can kind of see where the wind farms are located, and you can see the turbine clutter comes forward on our radar. And this can lead to, especially our media partners, sometimes believing there's storms out there when there is no storms. But the other more troubling issue is it'll mask real features, because the problem is not that wind or that clutter doesn't exist. We bounce off of all kinds of things, grain elevators, so on and so forth, but they're not moving. And if the grain elevator's moving, we got bigger problems. So things that don't move are not weather, so we remove them. Well, the wind turbine blades are moving, so we can't just remove everything in that area or we'll never see the actual weather signal. So this is a signal that is always there. Just a brief explanation, radar transmits a small little pulse of energy. Very small percentage of that bounces off and comes back. For precip, the heavier it is, the more energy we get back. Well, works the same way with the wind turbines. The actual tower reflects quite a bit of energy and the blades are showing motion. So just a brief explanation, you know, we do a 360-degree sweep with the radar. That's, you know, got to see everything, but we also tilt up and look higher up in the storm. So these upper tilts closer to 20 degrees aren't a problem. Of course, you know, the earth curves. For the flat earthers, I'm afraid to tell you, it does curve. So the radar beam goes further and further out. It gets higher. So now that's good and bad. One, if you're talking about a storm, say it's 60 miles, we can't really observe what's going on in the Lilith, so that's bad. That's why it's good, and we're really really blessed to have the radar in Ford County, because for Ford County citizens, you're getting really the best coverage. On the other side, it's good to have, say, a wind farm further away, because we're shooting over the wind turbine impacts. So again, you take the same storm, put it close to Dodge City, all of a sudden we're assessing things that you can't see at 60 miles. But you put the same wind farm at 5 to 10 miles, guess what? The radar beam is going through where those blades are turning. And so this is the problem. It's a complex signal, highly reflective, and it moves. Well, so does weather. You know, the storms we had yesterday, they're moving. We don't want to remove things that are moving or we'll never see anything. So we're stuck with this signal, this clutter issue. And admittedly, this has been there for a while. It's not like wind farms are new around here. And there's always a balance. We don't expect there to be zero impacts, but as you get closer and closer to the radar is where the problems start to come up. And so our aviation partners, I know I'm on the airport advisory board. You know, as planes come in, they want to know if there's a wind shift imminent, because obviously it impacts them in terms of which runway or what direction they're coming in. Well, those wind farms can kind of hide those wind shifts, and that's pretty big. We also have unrealistic gradients in some of the products, so it's harder to estimate precipitation, and especially things like rotation or strong winds, it will mask that. The turbine blades moving will hide the signal. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of what this looks like. Both of these are in or near Ford County. So this is actually a few years ago when there were actually less wind farms around Spearville. But this is actually two different time steps. So on the left, got some heavier precipitation that's up in mostly Hodgman County, but we also have this area, this purple circle, that's real precipitation that's northeast of Wright moving towards Spearville. And the yellow circle is the wind turbine clutter. That is not meteorological, that is signal that's hiding things. Now that's fine, so we can tell the difference. Now the media sometimes will jump and go, oh, look at the big storms near Spearville. Well, but on the right time period, the storm has moved into the wind farm. At that point, we lose the signal. We can't find it, we don't know if it's dissipated. We can look up, you know, a little higher tilts above it, but I can tell you stuff evaporates, things do not look the same as you go higher up. So here's the problem. It's difficult to discern what's going on, and that's just the reflectivity. So here's a case from a little over a couple years ago. This is just west of the gray Ford County line. So this first time period, the white box represents the approximate location of the wind farms over there. So we have we call a supercell, rotating storm moving in. It's got the hook echo you can see just south of the box and the reflectivity. And then the red and green there represents the velocity or the rotation. So we have a very compact area in that little yellow circle indicating where there's potential for a tornado. 3 minutes later, that moves into the wind farm. We lose the hook because there's so much clutter in that region. And we lose that compact area. We actually have kind of a diffuse, two different areas. Did it really do that? Is it the wind farms? We don't know. And in this case, if you had something moving in, you could at least kind of say, all right, I think conditions are going to persist. But if this developed in the wind farm, you would never see this. So I'm not trying to imply that there isn't impacts to from the wind turbines now, but this could get much worse. So that's just a brief explanation of the impacts. What the Weather Service has done historically for several decades is called the Radar Operations Center. And they have a broad mission, various things from updating software and equipment, but they also work with the wind turbine developers. And specifically, they usually find out indirectly. The developers usually don't come to them. It's usually some of the groups like the FAA. There's some other like communications-based groups that the wind farm developers are required to work with, and they'll pass along the information. So the Radar Operations Center will perform this analysis showing the impacts. Just for background, every wind farm in or near Ford County has had this analysis performed. So it's not like the Weather Service just came out of thin air. This has been going on, and it's provided to the developers. The problem becomes this. Unless required through local regulations, there are no federal or state laws or statutes that requires the developers to pass along this information to local decision makers. Some counties and parishes have done that across the country, but a lot of them are not even aware of it. The other issue is they're not obligated to implement any mitigation. So the Weather Service will provide this, and the Radar Operations Center is Norman, Oklahoma. They will provide this information to the developer. Some of the developers we hear back from and are good citizens and say, yep, we're gonna move that tower back a little bit, or we're gonna lower the turbine height. Others just say things, they put it in a file cabinet, and that's the last we hear of them. So really, what I'm saying is we provide the information, that being the Weather Service. The developers are not obligated to do anything with it at this point unless there's local regs. You say, well, why doesn't the Weather Service provide this to the local officials? The problem is because it's pre-decisional, it's confidential, we can't legally provide that. So it's really incumbent upon the developers to determine if they feel it's important for you to know. Historically, that hasn't happened. And that's not to go after the developers, it's just that's the system that's in place. So I'm going to sum up here. The ROC has developed, or the Radar Operations Center, this 4-zone scheme to try to explain to developers impacts. I'm not going to touch too much on the consultation zone, yellow here, or the green notification zone. I'm going to talk about the no build and the mitigation zone. First, when I say no build, it's not the whole wind farm. It is literally just the few turbines that would be within a 2.5-mile radius, essentially of the airport. The reason that area is important to really not put anything in there is, for one, it starts to block the signal to where right now we can look beyond, say we can look over by Overly and see storms. You start putting stuff too close, it'll block the signal. The other problem, you start to get receiver damage to where the radar could become inoperable. Then you have no radar, at least weather radar. And just for background, there is no other weather surveillance radar in Southwest Kansas. This is it. So if it shuts down, we're basically in the dark. Nothing else out there. You see the media shows their Doppler 4000. It's all a collection of Weather Service radars primarily, but especially for Southwest Kansas. And, you know, I have a lot of friends and family in this portion of the state, and I want them to know what's going on. We all kind of like to see where the storms are. Well, build something too close, the radar just goes inoperable. That doesn't even include things like built too close, there's OSHA standards of how much communication or how much microwave energy is getting received at a turbine, let's say, from the radar. Not to mention, if you're within 10 miles, you have to start shielding cables. So there's a lot more complicated things that go on by the developer, but especially 2.5 miles. The other area is this mitigation zone. I'm going to show you a map here, and I think most of you have something similar here. that red area, about 2.5 to 3 miles, that's the kind of the no-build zone, no matter what happens. And again, these are recommendations. We don't have the authority. Local, yes, but we at the Weather Service say, listen, here's the problem. There's a trade-off. You build within that zone, we're gonna have problems with the radar even operating. This mitigation zone's a little different. This is where it can impact more than 2 of those elevation angles I was showing you. Especially if there's 3, even though it's in the mitigation zone, that also their analysis will trigger a no build for that tower. Again, not the whole wind farm, just a few towers. So it's important to understand, we've had developers work with us, especially the area south of Highway 5056 in Spearville. I worked with the developers a few years ago after we got some of the analysis, and of course the Radar Operations Center does most of the direct connection with them, but other farms we don't hear much from. We don't hear much from the group north of Highway 5056. So again, that's because there is no federal or state requirements. It's incumbent upon local officials. So key takeaways here, I want you to understand our goal. You know, we support wind farms. We're not anti-wind farm. We understand the wind farms our developers' mission to produce green energy, but we also have a mission to protect life and property because, listen, you're not gonna have the Wichita media obsessing about Southwest Kansas. I'm not trying to throw them underneath the bus, but that's the reality. We're your local meteorologists to help give you information to protect, especially property, but you know, life. I mean, that's a critical thing. So really, the main item here is that mitigation or revision of plans for a few of the turbines is really key in most instances. Reduce the turbine heights, align them more along a line instead of a blockade that prevents the energy from going on. Develop further back, so if somebody wants to put something in that no-build zone, let's move it back. And then there's also things called curtailment agreements where we just call them up and say, you need to shut this down for a couple hours. Now, they're usually very hesitant to do that because obviously time is money for them with energy production. So I do want you to understand that no matter what we're talking about here, wind farms in close proximity, existing, not even talking about proposed, do degrade our ability, but there's a balance there. You know, we can still, for the most part, complete our mission, but as things get closer and closer to the radar, it becomes more difficult. So what are our goals? Why am I here besides being asked? Really like to see the developers work with the Radar Operations Center to verify if any of these no-build or mitigation zones exist. And then the developers provide this analysis to local decision makers. I think it's fair that everybody gets to see this because it's been done for decades, but it just kind of goes dead on the vine. And finally have the developer implement any mitigation tactics to reduce the impacts of the radar data quality. And again, because there's no federal or state laws or statutes that mandate that, it really comes down to, in this case, Fort County. And I'm aware of some other counties or parishes across the country that have been dealing with wind farms for years that have implemented that, but I'm not aware. I know I've talked to several people at the zoning board, it doesn't sound like that exists currently. So that's where we are. We don't institute policies. We just want you to be aware of the problems that do exist with wind farms, knowing that there's a balance. And you know, having something that keeps it especially farther from that 2.5 mile radius is better. And that's where working with, I think, the Weather Service Radar Operations Center can accomplish that. And so not everybody's gonna get exactly what they want, but you get 95% of the way there. And you know, to me, it's about what serves Fort County citizens in the best way. And only doing one versus the other is probably not the best approach, but we can have some balance. And I think the process that is in place works if there's an enforcement aspect to it. So that's all I have. I probably ran a little long. Sorry for the computer problems, but I'll take any questions.
Thank you for coming in, Aaron.
Sure.
So we're gonna probably kick this back to the
Zoning board?
zoning board here, and I think there's an opportunity if we think that this needs to exist in our zoning regulations for the wind farms, that these developers do report this stuff that they get from you, this information. I think there's an opportunity to do that. We can get that included, since this is getting kicked back. Now, I kind of see where that's important, you know. Question, Aaron, you don't have that here yet, but we've got some developments that, that are looking, at least looking right now. In other areas of the country, does the National Weather Service have any issues with solar developments? Is there anything to those kind of energy developments that?
Not that I'm aware of, since low profile and our radar's up. What is the radar height, Rick? It's probably 80 to 100 feet up.
Yeah, that's,
So, as long as they're not building up on a hillside, which, luckily we don't have big mountains to worry about, but as long as they're not building up on the side, you can reflect a lot of energy back off of wind farm, or off of solar farms, but for us, since we're flat enough, minimal issue there. It's more about land use and other things that we don't really have an angle to play in there, but wind farms are a little bit different, but and again, I'm not aware of specific counties, but I do know that other counties across the country or parishes have instituted some of this to say you need to work with the Weather Service. I don't think there's been any major problems that, the developers, it forces their hand to reveal a little bit more, but I think that's good. I think people should know what's going on so that there's this better balance. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Commissioner Snook, you have any questions for?
Well, I see the red dot right here. Is that what you're talking about?
That's the red no-build zone, 2.5, 3 miles.
So when the gal, so how many miles is this, 3 miles?
It's 2.5 to 3 miles.
Yeah, 3.09.
Mhm.
Yeah, 3.20 miles.
That's a map that we created off of their overlays, so it might not be precise to what they have, but it's as close as we could get.
There'll be an awful lot of people disappointed if you shut them down. Some of my friends would be really disappointed.
Should have got existing wind farms or proposals?
Shut down the wind.
Oh, we're not talking about, well, first, we don't have any authority to do that, but we're not talking about shutting any of the existing farms down. This is just before something is put in place and money's expended, making sure that there is the back and forth. We're not talking about, if we get a time machine, can we move them all beyond 20 miles? Sure, but that's not realistic. What we're talking about is going forward with proposed farms, which I'm aware of some, but I can't really talk about them today. But this is more about what do we do going forward and making sure that we don't get so close that the radar can't even operate. So, we're not talking about shutting any of the existing turbines or the wind farms, because a lot of those we did work with them, and may not look like it, but some of them have been modified so they're a little lower, so the impacts are less. So, we've come to those agreements to where there was a consensus, say, okay, this is the best path forward. We're just trying to make sure that you guys know that as there's less and less space and maybe trying to get closer and closer to the airport, that there are some impacts to the radar, and that those are things that I think you need to know and take into account in your decision making.
All right, Aaron, thank you for coming in today.
Sure, appreciate it.
We'll let you
Hopefully get my computer.
clean that up there. And, IT guys are gonna get that TV out of the way for us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for coming in.
You bet.
So as you can see, these are subjects that we've never discussed before.
Right.
And so the public hasn't had a chance to voice their opinion. The zoning board didn't know about this, so that's why I'm requesting that it gets sent back to the zoning board so that we can hold a public and discuss it.
Well, I would make a motion to return the 2023 Ford County zoning regulations to the Ford County zoning board for further review as requested.
I second it.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Marissa. All right, you don't have any legal counsel on the agenda? I believe, and that cleared out somehow. I believe we'll move on to the county administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item is the resolution permitting 2 swine production facilities for Seaboard Farms. That is resolution number 2023-21.
All right. We have some of those folks here today.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for considering the resolution. I'm Jennifer Nelson and I work for Seaboard Foods.
Jennifer, welcome. Do you want to tell us just a little bit, share a little bit about this for the folks that are viewing, I guess?
Sure. Seaboard Foods is looking for and has options to purchase some property in the southeast corner of the county for the development of 2 small gilt development unit farms. Those farms are, they supply, we grow and supply replacement sows for our commercial hog farms. And that's generally speaking the nature of the proposal, to build those 2 small, 2,500 head is the maximum number of head on each one of those farms. There would be land application acreage available for the farms for nutrient application of the solids generated at the farms almost immediately adjacent to the farm facilities. The farms would be placed on approximately 7 acres of land.
How much water does it take
That's a good question, and important to note that we would not be adding any, or we would be using existing water rights to supply water for the farms. So, I apologize that I don't know the exact number of gallons of water per head per day. It's a relatively small, number. I'm gonna estimate that it's about 5 gallons per animal per, day. But most importantly, we would not be seeking new water rights to withdraw new water from, the aquifer, from any water
So what are you
resource.
talking about buying, they've already got irrigation wells, is that correct?
We would be utilizing existing water rights. We're still exploring the, where we would source water.
I spent a lot of time down in the Panhandle where Seaboard's at, so I know a little bit about that. My son lived down there for quite a while, and so are you. See, we have a problem with our water around here. I have friends that wells used to put out 1,500 gallon minute. They no longer do that. So I'm wondering, first of all, we need to be considerate of the fact that we're gonna run out of water before we know it. All my life, so we'll run out of water.
Well, we, like I said, Commissioner, we are not pursuing new water rights, and all of the water use would be permitted by the Kansas Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, all I can tell you for sure is that there's a lot of area around here that's running out of water. Water is lower down. Where I used to
southeast if you, would like to see the properties, I've got a map to
That's
show
what I
you.
wanna see.
Okay?
North and east of Buckland.
What?
Yeah,
North and
Buckland.
east of Buckland.
Okay, if I come up
Sure.
and give you a map, okay? So those are the two properties.
Thank you.
Pat, if you have anything to add about the water supply, that'd be,
I'm Pat Jensen, I'm one of the participants in this project. The buildings are gonna use between 12 and 15 acre feet a year. They'll be purchasing water. One of the, well, 5 of the sites, they'll be purchasing water from my family from an existing irrigation right. We'll be reducing that right by the quantity that's transferred to the clog facility.
So net offset is zero.
Yeah, actually, better than that by the time you figure in the consumptive use factor when changing from irrigation to stock.
we generally lose water when we, transfer right from irrigation to stock.
Yeah, because they'll only, I'd have to pull that map up, but I think in Ford County, for every, you'll only get 73% of every acre foot that you get there. So that'll be an additional conservation factor.
Okay.
And we employ, it's in our best interests as well as our community's best interest to employ water conservation measures. And we use waterers and other practices that, in an effort to minimize our water consumption in the farms.
The other thing that we did as producers on this project is we decided rather Seaboard's normal hog system is an open lagoon. They lose quite a bit of water to evaporation on that. They also use a lot more water in the flushing and sanitation portions of those facilities. What we're proposing here is a deep pit building. It's basically gonna look like a double wide that'll hold about 4 million gallons of fluid basement. And so we're not gonna be losing any water to evaporation in the waste storage portion of the thing. They're gonna be about as efficient as you can make them.
So Pat's right that, that model is new to our operation in the state of Kansas. We don't have other deep pit farms in the state of Kansas, but it is a, model that we commonly use in Iowa. And, because you have, approximately 8-foot deep pits underneath the barns as opposed to 2 feet, and, an outdoor wastewater treatment system. And, so it minimizes the amount of water used in the barn, for flushing pits, as Pat said. So there's animal consumption of water, but minimal water for that, purpose. And this is an aerial photograph of a 3-barn site. These barns that we're talking about would only have 2 barns, but, that's a 3-barn site in the state of Iowa, so you can see that, the barns there's no outdoor wastewater treatment system.
Well, we got a cheese plant coming in here. Looks like to me we're supposed to have 3 dairies put in here, big dairies, for the cheese plant. So, everybody's sucking on the water around here. I mean, it is unbelievable. Everybody.
40% of the GDP of Kansas is generated west of Pratt in the sales of agricultural products. That does not include manufacturing, oil production, anything else. The entire economy in this part of the state is propped up by water. And I am very, very familiar with that. We're not going to abuse it.
You're almost in Kiowa County.
Yes, sir, we are.
And, how blessed would we be if you was?
You'll like us when she is.
Huh?
You'll like us when she is.
I got it. I got it. I can tell you, the odor down in the Panhandle is not cool.
Have you been around one of these deep pit facilities, sir?
Have I been around what?
A deep pit building where they don't have the open lagoons?
Well, I just drove by several of them, but I never or deep or what it was. I'm sure we know the story on that.
Those
But I
probably
know
don't
that you
fit
have,
down there.
I know that you have a reason for wanting it, because you want to sell some land. I understand that. And it's about you, and I'm talking about me.
We toured these deep pit buildings, looking at another project about 10 years ago. And if you were standing from EDU outside the building, you might get an occasional whiff of ammonia, but they're nothing compared to what you're smelling is the ammonia evaporating off those liquid fuels. And in these deep pits, that's all contained internally. And they do aerate the buildings because they have to, but you're not, the hog facilities that you're familiar with, that's not what these are.
Commissioner, we have, Seaboard has approximately 155 farms in southwest Kansas, and we haven't had an odor complaint. All of those farms have outdoor wastewater treatment systems. We haven't had an odor complaint in as long as I can remember in southwest Kansas. I didn't have experience with this type of operation when I first went to work for Seaboard, and I worked for Seaboard for about 22 years. And I was, you have to be right up even on an outdoor wastewater treatment system. You really have to be right up on it. If it's managed correctly and you have proper microbial activity in the lagoon, we manage that very closely, the odor is minimal.
Well, I'm sure that you're concerned about the situation, but I'm concerned myself too, because that's not very far away. You're talking about Buckley, Kansas, and you're almost into Kiowa County.
We also have to observe setbacks, regulatory setbacks. We'll seek permits from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and there are regulatory setbacks from residents, from wells, from lots of different features, including Buckland. We'll be well away from Buckland.
And I think it's also important to note that with a adoption of a resolution here, that doesn't end the process either, Commissioner. Then they get to start the zoning process that they have to go through as well. So that, what they're here for today with this resolution is basically a permit for them to start the process of going through the zoning board and then back to us for final approval of the site as well. So
Commissioner,
they
if I
have
might.
a fair bit to do. You guys have a fair ways to go even after this is done, right?
So we have, in this process, this is approval to develop the farms in the county. And this resolution, the determination on this resolution has to be published in the newspaper twice for 2 weeks, 2 consecutive weeks. And then if there is a petition filed, a valid petition filed by residents in the community, 5% of the electoral of the registered voters in the county, then that petition potentially goes on the next ballot. So there's process around what we're asking for you to approve today, and then there's a zoning process that I understand we will go through in the county. Then we have permits to receive from both Kansas Department of Health and Environment and the Kansas Department of Agriculture. So there's a lot of regulation and process before we construct the farms.
Commissioner Snook, if you have any question in your heart about this and you'd like some more time to think about it, we can table it. It's not.
I'd like to think about it a little bit, because the Seaboard Farm that was down in the Panhandle, I can guarantee it's pretty rank. said, it's all deep pits, and this is that, and this is that, and you say anything, get the deal. And it's not really cool down in Savannah. It's not cool at all.
Would you be willing to go look at some facilities?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to go look at some facilities like the ones we're telling you? We wanted to make an informed decision.
I know where you're talking about here, because I was raised in Ford, so I know about Buckland and Mobile and all those. So I know it's.
Well, no.
I think Pat's talking about
Yeah.
touring a facility.
A deep pit facility.
I see.
If I might add something, I'm one of the landowners, and Mr. Smith, I agree with what you're saying. If I thought that was a big problem, if I thought that the aroma or the odor coming from the Hawthorne was gonna be a problem, I'd be the first one to say not only no, but major no. I live not very far away from that. My daughter and my grandkids are not very far away from it. I feel like that it is in our best interest to go ahead and go with this. Not only, I don't think that the odor is gonna be as bad as Fort Kenny Feed Yard. I don't think that it's gonna be a major issue, in our neighborhood, or I wouldn't want to endorse this. But more than that, we're looking at a way to make agriculture more sustainable. I got two little grandsons that love to farm, and, we gotta figure out a way for them to stay in this farm business. And we can take this nutrients that goes through these hogs, this water that goes through this hog, minus a minor part that stays in the hog, and put them out as fertilizer in our farms. Save buying commercial fertilizer.
I'm sure you will.
We'll inject it. We're not gonna spread it on top. There's not gonna be that aroma coming from that. We've already gone through a lot of this, like the deep pit deal. That is a major factor in, you can twist Seaboard's arm just a little bit to get them to agree that, because they'll look good as you build. But this here is all confined. The building is right over top of that pit. All the goodies, the goodies, go right down in it. It stays right there. No sunshine on it, there's no wind on it. It is, the nutrients coming out of that pit, I think it's 2.5 times the nutrients that's in an open lagoon. So tell me how much nitrogen leaks, how much of the other nutrients leak that's right there. That we will take, or they will take, and truck it, inject it into our fields.
So the land application process is that there is, as you described, Roy, there's an umbilical cord that runs from the farm, from the pits in the farm to the field, and it is direct injected, and it's a GPS process, so it's precision applied. We take into consideration, we balance and calculate an agronomic rate of application based on the nutrient levels in the manure that's being applied in the soil. So any resident nutrient is taken into account so that there is not excess nutrient applied, and the crop being grown.
So really get more bang for the buck by use of the water, by going through this process, looking at hogs, growing hogs, taking that effluent, putting it on the soil. That water is still gallons of water going into that soil to reach the crop. We're really, this is really a good deal. It's maximum utilization. Place just pumping water out there with their sprinklers, like we've all done, and let part of it blow away and all this. This is going to food source for people. It's giving us nutrients as well as taking that water and putting it right back in our soil to grow another crop.
So how are you putting it in there? Are you
Injecting it.
injecting?
Effectively, it's about a 20-inch holder with you remember your old single disc weed drill? We had the boot next to the disc that ran in the slot. Yes. But it's effectively that same thing, only in a bigger package, so that they can get it in the depth of about 6 inches, and then close that back over it, so that we don't lose the fundamentalization.
Is any of this ground sandy where you're at?
Yes, sir.
So again, we have an agronomist on staff that we use to calculate so that there isn't leaching below the root zone. It's applied considering the soil type, the soil nutrient levels, and we calculate, the company calculates the agronomic rate. We do not rely on others to do that because we want to be conservative. And we do it based on real-time samples before each land application event of the manure, the soil, and consider the crop.
If we applied corn crops, nylon crops, that would be applied in the spring. It won't be applied in the fall or winter and allowed to sit and increase the, I assume leaching is your concern. Is that your concern, sir?
My concern is, number one, my concern is, I'm representing Ford County, and there's plenty of people in Ford County in that area, or you wouldn't be here. You would be in Kiowa County doing your thing over there.
Got several buildings going in Kiowa County too, sir.
Kiowa County, so in the state of Kansas, we have to go through this approval process by state law in any county that we develop in. Kiowa County law, I don't know exactly when they voted, but it was before we came to an agreement with landowners to purchase land. So in Kiowa County, we don't have to go through this process for approval because we are Seaboard Foods that is developing. If an individual wanted to develop a hog farm, that would not require your approval. But
Well,
because
I've seen a jillion, not a jillion, but I've seen plenty of Seaboard farms in Benton. I mean, lots and lots and lots of. Don't tell me how great thou art, because I'm not going to.
But it isn't this type of setup.
I don't.
See, we're talking
it
apples and
wasn't, I
oranges.
can tell you it wasn't because we don't have any other deep pits anywhere except Iowa. And we're talking about two very small farms that will have to meet will have to meet setbacks from residents, and they will have an opportunity, there will be an opportunity for objection in that process too, in the permitting process from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. But we had discussions
So will you
about.
do this, will you just give me your telephone number, so when those people call me up and need my tail end out, I can send them to you?
Absolutely. That's
You
the
know what,
proper
now,
place.
These guys here, there's a reason for it, they have what's called money coming their way, or they would be arguing. You're the one that I wanna know, can I have to call you?
Commissioner, if you were to receive a complaint, I would expect and hope
I
that the company would hear about it.
guarantee I will receive a complaint. I guarantee.
I will, and, this process, if you approve this resolution, it will go it'll be published in the paper and will be.
There's the paper man right there. Tell him, make sure you got it in, okay?
Yes, sir.
I don't know, I'm not crazy, Darrell.
Well, Commissioner, if you would like to table this, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to make that
I
motion.
would like to take,
You'll make that a formal motion.
yes, I make a motion to table it for next month.
I'll second the motion. Do we have any further discussion on it?
What do you need, or what can we provide to you to alleviate any questions or concerns?
I think if commissioners want to reach out to you on an individual basis to try and get that information, if we got your contact information.
JD has it, and I'm gonna leave a couple of additional business cards that you can provide.
With the motion and second on the table, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Would be interested in knowing if you would be willing to do a tour, we could accommodate that.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Chairman, the next item on the agenda is the co-energy agreement. Hargrave here to discuss that.
Doug, how are you?
Good, Commissioners, thank you.
I promise you I will be hard on you. Could you convince me?
All right, so what we end up having for numbers?
It says 6.7 million, Commissioner, and I was able to forward a copy of that updated agreement since we met this morning. with the ADP administrator, so the county is in receipt of that contract.
Okay, and did we find the number that we were looking for?
I'm sorry.
Did we find the number?
We did reach out to Stan, we have not heard back.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so, with the discussion we had during the work session, I would make a motion that we approve the agreement between Ford County and Iconergy pending further review of county council and pending that final number that we get for that total.
I second that.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It'll work out for you. I'll tell you that.
Next, we've got the revenue neutral rate discussion. So we'll need to look at that. I think right now we're at 46.
Yes. Gentlemen, I need to know by the 20th, the proposed mill levy, proposed ad valorem tax dollars, the date of our hearing, the time of our hearing.
20th of this month,
Yes.
and then 3 days.
Yes. We've tried to put our budget together. We have not received everyone's budget information back. So I have not heard what proposed ask is for. I know that our revenue neutral rate is 43.163. That is to get the money, the exact same amount of money that we received last year.
43.163.
Yes. If we are going to increase our ask of next year, or last year's, we will have to go over that neutral rate. How much is going to be asked? I do not know. We have no JD's talked to Pat Reeves.
He has, I believe we're at 46.
46 is what normally we go to. I believe last year was a little bit more than 46, and it ended up to be 46.13. But I need to know by the 20th, because I will have to put everything together to send out the revenue neutral rate information to everybody.
Okay. And in this particular agenda item and action, we're looking for a date and time for that revenue neutral rate hearing, is that correct?
I need date and time. I also need your proposed mill levy if you want it to set at 46. And then I can figure out what the ad valorem ask will be for that 46 if. But whatever we put in will have to be showing up on what we publish also.
Okay, so you need that by the time we publish. You don't need that in this action.
I need that by now to put in for my stuff that I have to mail out. The law is not very, we could wait until we publish closer to, I think JD said to set for the 18th of September.
However, what I need to public to send out to everyone, so that everyone gets their notice, I have some entities that are going to have their hearing August 23rd. Because your hearings have to be between August 20th and September 20th. So I have to get everything out 10 days before then. If we wait, that's another publish that I have to mail out. Because everything's on one.
Tanda, do you know this 46 figure, did that include the wage variable that we were talking about?
I understand, yes.
That included that? And Debbie, if we say 46 is the number, then that's what we publish. Then where are we at as far as actually getting the budget put together? If we come in above 46, we can't do it, right?
The way the revenue neutral rate hearing is now, in the past, you were setting your levies. If you went above a certain amount, you had that tax list, because you had to hold a election. Now, if you go over the revenue neutral rate, which is the 43.163, you're asking for the money. So you can get the money that you're wanting. But if you publish your not your revenue neutral rate, if you publish your levy, I have to stay as close to that levy that you publish, that I can get you the money that you want. It's really confusing. What they did was not helping anything. Let me try to figure out, if we leave it at 46, how much that would give me. Okay, 46 mil would be 1,708,947.86. Is based on the estimated valuation.
Say that again?
1,708,947.86. Just a minute, I messed that up.
$1,708,000, that's 3 mils. Basically.
Have you spoke to Pat Freeze? What is he asking?
We want to stay at least at what we were at this year, at 46. At least 46, because ours at 43.
Right, but I need to also know the proposed ad valorem tax dollar amount.
This year's mill times the estimated valuation.
I'll get with
I
Pat.
think it's like 46.1 something.
That's the proposed mill levy. I
Yeah,
need to
that's
know
the
how
same.
much money. If you're wanting what we received this year, that R&R is 43.163. That gives us the exact same money we got last year.
So the estimated valuation for 2024 multiplied
this in for publication. So we want to do the hearing on the 18th of September?
Yes.
At what time? 3? Or 3:30?
You guys all right with doing it at 3? Or maybe the first item on the admin report?
You have to have a public hearing, close it.
And start off our meeting before the consent agenda
Yeah.
on the 18th.
Yes, sir.
We want to do that also for the fire district.
Sure.
At what time? 3:30?
Mr. Chairman, can I run the restroom?
Yes, sir. We'll call a brief recess.
It'll be brief on this.
We've tried.
Okay, we are gonna call the meeting back to order. Currently on the table, we have the revenue neutral rate discussion, in which we are discussing a date and time for the revenue neutral rate hearing. I would make a motion that we approve September 18th, 2023, in the regular meeting at 3:30 as the time and date for the revenue neutral rate hearing.
I second it.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? And Debbie, you have the numbers that you need there that you
Yes.
need for the,
I do.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Gentlemen, the next item is are the results of the RFQs for construction management at risk for the Legacy Center. We had 2 companies submit, that was Koenig Construction and Building Solutions. We want to move both of them on to the second portion of the process we put in place, which is basically the interview process.
Kitty, I could barely hear you. What did you say?
We had two companies submit RFQs for the Legacy Center to be the construction manager at risk, Koenig Construction and Building Solutions.
Yeah.
And we want to move both of them into the second round.
Move them into the second round.
Yeah.
So I would make a motion to approve both of the applicants to move to the interview process second round.
I second it.
With the motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 5 is for Road and Bridge Superintendent Chris O'Neill.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Chris.
We went out for bid for new 3/4 ton pickup trucks, asking for 2 units. We received 2 bids back. The first was from Lot Motors. The unit price was $47,010. Total price was $94,020, and their delivery date was an estimate of 90 to 180 days. And that was for a Dodge Ram 2500. Second bid was from Lewis Chevrolet of Dodge City for a Chevy Silverado 2500. Unit price was $44,973. Total price of $89,946. They also attached a letter to their bid speaking about their fleet allocation request date would be September 1st is when they would be able to put in a request to allocate those 2 pickups. And if they were able to get the allocation request in, it would then be 6 to 8 months for delivery.
basically lobs us $2,000 more, is that right?
Yeah, total price there, $4,080.
So, only you would know how bad you need it, but I sure do.
Well, yeah, one of these is replacing a truck that we had burned down.
Okay.
So, yeah, I would like to get them as soon as possible.
Do you prefer the Dodge?
I have no preference when it comes to model or make. So that's why I did not make a recommendation. Going off the purchasing policy, you know, the warranties are very close together. The low price is Lewis. The delivery date was the question, because it's not 100% guarantee that that Lewis could get the trucks in on the
See,
allocation.
that's the way I understand this as well, is their request date is
Correct.
September 1st, right?
Correct.
They would submit their request on
Mhm.
September 1st.
Yes.
So we're gonna wait 45 days before we get a request put in.
And there's a possibility that.
And then, if they get an allocation, it's gonna be 6 to 8 months.
Correct.
That's no guarantee that we get the allocation.
Correct.
So, I mean, the only choice that I really see is Law Motors on this. We at least say they're gonna get the pickups to us,
Correct.
and it's gonna be 3 months to 6 months out.
Correct.
I'd have to second that deal because Chris got one already burned down or something, right? Well, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you know, we're talking about $2,000 extra, right?
Yeah.
Commissioner, would you like to make that motion
Yes, I would.
to approve? I'll let you make it.
I'd make the approve to purchase the two new two-wheel drive regular cab, 3/4 ton pickup with Law Motors.
I'd second the motion.
$47,010.
I'd second the motion. With the motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
The next several items are for Santa Fe Trails. She said she'll be
You
brief.
come to town,
She comes to play, that's what we see.
I will be rich. Okay, so the first item that I'm bringing before you is some minor changes that we made to our advisory board bylaws. When we reviewed the bylaws at our advisory board meeting last Tuesday on the 11th, there was just a few modifications that we noticed. One was that we still specified that our meetings were held at 208 West Spruce, which is at our adult office, and we haven't held them there for some time. We've been up here at the conference room here on the Medicaid level. And then the other thing that we needed to modify was that the notice of our hearings would be posted on both the Ford County website and the Ford County Facebook page. So those are the two minor adjustments that we needed to make. This was voted on by the advisory board. It's been reviewed by Glenn, and bringing it before you today.
So I'd make a motion to approve the amendments to the Santa Fe Trails Community Corrections Advisory Board bylaws as recommended.
I second it.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next one is our FY '23 juvenile services year and outcome report. As you know, we work on a fiscal year, and so our fiscal year just ended on June 30th. And this report summarizes the goals and objectives that we set for ourselves over the last year. So I provided the summary for you, which touched on some numbers and explanation of things. Of where we were for the year in total. Again, this has already been reviewed and presented to the advisory board, and that's why I'm here before you today, before I can submit it to the state.
second that. Motion second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So the next one is the year-end outcome report, but for our adult services. So again, this just summarizes the progress on the goals and objectives that we set for ourselves for the year. This as well was presented to the advisory board, and this is my next step before being able to submit it to the state to wrap up our fiscal year.
I move that we approve the Santa Fe Trail Community Correction FY 23 Adult Service Year-End Outcome Report as presented.
I would second. Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next item is our juvenile services FY 23 fourth quarter prevention grant progress report on our truancy program, also known as DIVERT. I provided the numbers summarizing our progress for the year, how many referrals we received this last quarter, and the total numbers for the year. This was also presented to the advisory board.
I make a motion, we approve the Santa Fe Trails Community Corrections Juvenile Services fiscal year 23 fourth quarter prevention grant progress report as presented.
I second it.
Motion second, any further discussion? Sonia, how did these numbers compare with years past? Is that kind of in line with the way it's been, or?
Yes, with the truancy program, we, I know that the numbers may seem small for this fourth quarter, but we had a somewhat early specific cutoff date because previously we had gotten referrals up until like the last week of school. And so that just didn't make sense to be providing truancy services when the year had pretty much wrapped up. And so we had a cutoff date mid-April to allow for some time to actually work with the student and family to see if we could make improvements on the truancy issues. So the last item is the same report for our prevention
Hang
grant.
on just a minute, Sonia,
I'm sorry, you didn't
we gotta run a vote here real quick.
I said it, I didn't hear you.
We hadn't had the vote on that one there, had to stop it for just a minute. So we got, on the table, motion and second, to approve the fourth quarter prevention grant progress report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry, got ahead of myself. Okay, so this last item is the fourth quarter prevention grant progress report for our intake diversion program. Again, I provided the numbers for the numbers of referrals. These numbers were lower this year because the high school has implemented some new in-house programs, diversion programs that they are providing for youth. And so most of the referrals for our intake diversion program came from the junior high level. We got very few referrals from the high school based on the new programs that they were starting this year. So, we hope to have conversations with them before this next school year starts, just to, remind them of the services that we offer and see how we can work in conjunction with the new programs that they started.
Make a motion that we approve Santa Fe Trail Community Corrections Juvenile Services fiscal year 23 fourth quarter prevention grant progress report intake diversion program.
I second it.
Motion and second, any further discussion? Sonia, when you guys come in here and talk about these numbers at the end of the year all the time, it's one of those deals. If you guys are doing a good job and we start seeing success in this, your numbers go down. I mean, to me,
Right, we were trying to work ourselves out of a job.
Exactly, that's kind of,
Right.
I mean, if things are going swimmingly, see that a little bit with like
Right.
King and RC or those kind of things too. When we're doing a great job, it kind of looks like there's no need for our services anymore. But anyway, I appreciate what you're doing there. Thought I was kind of point that out. But anyway, with the motion on the table, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia.
Next item are the upcoming meetings, 2023 NACO Annual Conference, that will be in Austin, Texas. That will begin this week, July 21st through the 24th. Chairman Tassett, myself, and Assistant County Administrator Bartlett will be traveling to Austin. Travel days are the 20th for all of us, and then Commissioner Tassett will be coming back on the 24th, correct?
Yes.
Tassett not attending, I will be coming back on the 25th. Ford County Fair will be July 20th through the 24th. Doug is still in here that answers his question about when the fair will be. Dodge City Days will begin July 27th and go through August 6th. We have the Dodge City Roundup Rodeo, August 1st through August 6th. And Debbie, we have the canvas and canvas and boats, August 9th at 8:30 a.m.
Yes, like also, we will start in-office voting for USC 381 on the 24th. Our primary. Yes. Primary is August 1st.
Brings us to an executive session.
Yes, sir.
I would make a motion that the board recess into executive session to discuss equipment purchases pursuant to the discussion of data relating to financial affairs or trade secrets of corporations, partnerships, trusts, and individual proprietorships, exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The open meeting will resume in this location.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. We'll resume in this location at 5:15.
Mr. Chairman, could you also include Samantha Sweeley in that executive session?
So in addition to commissioners, we have county administrator, assistant county administrator, county counselor, road and bridge superintendent O'Neill, and
Samantha Sweeley.
Samantha Sweeley also.
Thank you.
That is my motion. Commissioner Smith, may I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, all
I
those
was
in favor?
looking at the pretty girls for Christ's sake.
If I can bring you back to the meeting.
It's a good idea.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chris? All right, we are calling the commission meeting back to order after executive session. At a meeting, previous meeting, I don't remember if it was the last one or the one before, we discussed the option of rebuilding a couple of motor graders for the road and bridge department. And at this time, I would make a motion that we not approve the rebuilding of those motor graders.
I second it.
second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right. I think that's it for the meeting, is it not? Yes, sir. I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?